Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody. It is week 16, and welcome to the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast. We give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail today in week 16, the second round of the fantasy football playoffs, and the rest of your 2024 fantasy football season to help you advance to your championship round. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap, who was holding down the fort last week on the live show, but I'm happy to be back. I'm happy that it's semifinals week. Maybe I'm not happy because I'm off to a bad start personally, but it is semifinals week. Hopefully we can help you guys out. We already have, let's see, was it 3 games already done? We had 1 Thursday, 2 yesterday. So you still have, I guess, man, I'm bad with math. What do we have? I guess 13 games left or something like that. A good slew of them today. We have 1 Monday Night Miracle game tomorrow. Nick, how are we feeling on semifinal week?
Feeling good. We got a couple games for myself this weekend, so always looking forward to that. Happy our season is still continuing, and hopefully Nick and I the last few weeks and for the course of the season have been able to get your team this far. So goals to keep chugging along and get you these next 2 wins.
And hopefully we've been able to help you out this season. I know we've given a lot of advice, whether you've been listening to our weekly shows with our waiver wire, takeaways, all boom, all bust, or deep dive players. And if you've been listening on the lives on Sundays, obviously we give you guys a ton of answers. We have some people in the chat already. Joe says semifinals week. I know he's in a semifinal in our league. Deshaun says, what's up? He said he made the semifinals in 5 leagues. It's awesome, Deshaun. Congratulations to you. That's the odds of that are spectacular. Scott's here, says morning, guys. So hopefully a lot of you guys are still in your semifinals and we could still keep answering your fantasy football questions. If for some reason, though, you're a first-time listener or watcher, thank you for joining the show. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast live show. We do a live show every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time during the fantasy football season. We got 1 more next week. I don't know if we'll do week 18. If you guys are still playing week 18, we'll go live. But most people did not play in the last week of the season. But again, live show every single Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We do highly recommend you consume the content on YouTube. As you can see, kind of the queue here that we've popped up at the questions, so you kind of know when, where your question is on the queue. So here's how it works. You drop your questions in the chat. We answer your questions in a nice, thorough manner. Just please be patient with us as we do answer other people's questions, and you'll see kind of where you're on the queue. No reason to bump your question a couple times. When we're not answering questions, we will go through our game-by-game preview, just talking about injuries. There's really not a ton of injuries today, but we will end up talking about. So first question from Deshaun. It's tough with Kamara out. This is really tough. Kamara's been your top 5 running back this year. He's sitting right now. I think he's like running back 3 or 4 at the moment. And it's tough when you have him out in a semifinal game. So we have to pick 2 in PPR. Amir Abdullah with the Raiders going up against those Jaguars. Tim Patrick on the Lions going up against the Bears. Ray McLeod with the Falcons going up against the Giants. Yep. I think the Giants. And then Craig Reynolds also going up against the Giants, I believe. So who are you feeling here, Nick?
Yeah, Craig Reynolds is going up again. He is going against the Bears, Craig Reynolds.
Yes, that's what I meant. He's a Lion. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
How you feeling about this one?
I think the high ceiling play would be McLeod. You want to take advantage of that Giants secondary. You hope Penix to get off to a good start. I think that's a little too risky for your fantasy football playoffs. But if you want to shoot your shot, it's that. I think the safest floor is going to be Abdullah. He should be the starting back. Very easy defense against them. They should run the ball a bunch. AOC is back as the quarterback. So to me, that's the one that makes the most sense if you need the floor play of the group.
Well, we got to pick 2, I believe. So I think I'm going to go with Abdullah, and then I'm trying to decide between which Lions receivers. I'm just going to the chart right here and just seeing kind of who's caught what here. So it looks like Tim Patrick has 379 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns.
Craig Reynolds is the backup running back. He will be the RB2 with Dave Montgomery out.
Oh, yes. I would rather start Tim Patrick and hope that Jared Goff gets him in the end zone, but that's really tough. I don't really want to start McLeod, the third receiving option with a rookie quarterback. I would avoid that.
Okay, fair enough.
From Joe, need one wide receiver and one flex. Darnell Mooney, Jalen McMillan, Jonnu Smith, Jerome Ford, and Kendre Miller. Did you have McMillan on your boom team? I forget.
No, we both shouted them out as like a sneaky play.
Okay, so I'm going to immediately say that I want McMillan in there. I'm going to start McMillan in the league tonight, facing off the Cowboys defense. The Cowboys defense against receivers has allowed the 10th most fantasy points. McMillan has back-to-back weeks with 7+ targets and double-digit fantasy points. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still top 3 in terms of offensive production. They're top 3 in yards at the moment. I believe they're top 3 in touchdowns as well. So I like having a buck and somebody on Sunday Night Football. The Cowboys defense is still decimated. No Trayvon Diggs. So I think Mike Evans and McMillan will both have good games. Second one's a little bit tougher. So Kendre Miller against the Packers is intriguing. I really don't want to touch Darnell Mooney there. I am worried about Penix. First start. I know it's an easier defense, but you just don't know what you're going to get. It's your semifinal game. John is a tough matchup, but I feel like it's really tough to bench him too. And then Ford's against the Bengals. So what are you thinking here?
So I definitely start with McMillan. It's also the highest over/under game of the week. Good to note. My concern where he might miss is I feel like Evans could get force fed as they try to get him to that 1,000-yard mark. But regardless, McMillan is the best matchup of the group with the highest upside, snap share, all that kind of stuff you really want to see. And then the safe floor I'd probably go with in combining it would be Jerome Ford. I think he's going to get the bulk of the carries. He was a fine play while Nick Chubb was out. You go to DTR, so you're not going to have Jameis Winston chucking the ball down the field as much. It will be short. It will be dump-offs. It'll be running the ball. So I think he actually would be my safer floor than Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller, I want a piece of, but I don't know if I'm going to trust him with Spencer Rattler and all those options out. Packers defense has been one of the best in football. I also don't want the stress of waiting until Friday night, until Sunday night, till Monday Night Football with Kendre Miller putting my season on the line.
I think I'm going to lean Jonnu Smith here. He actually is on my old bust team, and I'm concerned about that. However, Jonnu Smith's production has been ridiculous. He has 5 consecutive weeks of double-digit fantasy points. In those last 5 weeks, his lowest number is only 13.4. The other 4 are over 19. It looks like Jalen Waddle's not going to go today. He's doubtful. Tyreek Hill's also questionable with a wrist injury, but he should play. So you're looking at Jonnu Smith. He's now going to be probably the second receiving option, and I know that there's Fred Warner over there. I know the matchup is really tough against the 49ers, but I feel like when you have a star like that who's really, really producing, I'm not sure you could bench them at this juncture, especially in a very important game. I mean, the options that you're looking at are Jerome Ford against the Bengals defense, and I know the Bengals defense looks like Swiss cheese, but they're really not bad or good against the running backs. They're middle of the pack. Same with the Packers defense, but the Packers defense looked like the 85 Bears against my Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Spencer Rattler starting, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. If you're worried about Jonnu, I would probably go with Jerome Ford due to it being the best matchup, I believe. But I think it'd be really tough to bench Jonnu in most situations here.
Sure.
From Scott Green, full PPR, Hunter Henry or Kyle Pitts? That's a really interesting question because rookie quarterbacks love to target the tight ends. Kyle Pitts has not had a good year. He's had yet another Kyle Pitts year where we talked about him. Hasn't cracked double-digit fantasy points since week 8. Since week 8, he's played 1 through 3, 6 games, including 1 goose egg and 2 other games under 5 fantasy points. So Kyle Pitts has not played well, but now again gets a new quarterback, rookie quarterback, and rookies love to target the tight ends. Hunter Henry, he's tight end 11. Hunter Henry cracked double digits 3 weeks ago, but he had a bye, so really 2 weeks ago in game playing time. His last 5 is 12, 9, 14, and 6, or last 4, I should say. He's going up against Buffalo in a game that could be very snowy, I believe. I think I would actually lean Kyle Pitts here.
Yeah, I lean with Kyle Pitts as well. I'm looking at Hunter Henry. His last 5 games against the Buffalo Bills as a New England Patriot, he's had 0, 1.9, 3.3, 10.2, and 4.7. So it has been a rough road for Henry. It's the best quarterback he's had in that span, but I don't know if I still want to. They've had his number for 5 games. I don't know if I really want to throw him out there.
From Jonathan Santiago, thanks for joining the show. Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, Juwan Jennings, Calvin Ridley, pick 2, leaning Terry and Keenan, but Terry's matchup scares me as an Eagles fan. I'm assuming this is PPR, but if it's not PPR, please let us know. So it's Terry going up against the Eagles, and he did not play well against the Eagles week 11. I do want to note that. Keenan Allen's facing the Lions. It's a positive matchup. What did Keenan do against the Lions last time? I think he had like 20 points or something. I think it was in that span where Keenan was getting a ridiculous amount of targets. I'm going to look that up. Juwan Jennings going up against the Miami Dolphins. Looks like a tough matchup on paper. Do want to note that. And then Calvin Ridley going up against the Colts. So how are you feeling if this is PPR? We're assuming it's PPR at the moment.
I would go McLaurin. I understand the fear for sure on that one, but it is the
Most game of the
talented
season
player.
at 2 points, week 11. Since week 3, Terry's at double digits in every single game except for that Eagles game. I just want to give context there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the toughest matchup, but I think the talent is just so much better and more consistent than the rest of the board. I don't think you could bench him this week. Number 2 is a great question. Nick, did you find Allen's number against the Lions or no?
I'm looking at it right now. I was getting Terry's numbers first because I wanted to look at everything he's done. Because I've had a couple people ask me about Terry McLaurin, and I have Terry McLaurin in a league as well. And I actually have to start Terry due to George Pickens and Jalen Waddle getting hurt. So I personally don't have an option. When you have options like this, it makes the conversation much tougher. So Keenan Allen here, I think he had a really good game because there's a stretch there where he had like 4 or 5 really good games, and I think the Lions are in that stretch. So here we go. His last game against the Lions, which was week 13, he had 24.3 fantasy points. He had 5 receptions and 8 targets for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Over his last, let's go back to week 10. His lowest target total is 5 in week 14 against San Francisco. He's had 6+ targets actually, if we go back to week 8, his targets are 7, 10, 6, 8, 15, 8, 5, and 13. His yards aren't as good, but in his last 4 games, his yard totals are 82, 73, 30, and 82. In his last 4 games, he has 4 touchdowns. So I think I actually want to lock in Keenan Allen over Terry McLaurin. And then I'm between Juwan Jennings, who technically is a tough matchup. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey over there, but he could play the slot a lot. And Juwan Jennings has actually seemed to emerge as the favorite receiving target. With Deebo Samuel over there, can't he looks terrible. And then we're looking at Calvin Ridley. I think I want to lean Keenan Allen and Juwan Jennings. I know that Terry is your guy, but you could lose fantasy football weeks by playing a star receiver and getting a dud. I lost one last week because of DK Metcalf, and I didn't really have another option. When I won my the points total in me in Nick's league a couple years ago, I refused to bench DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson against a very tough Rams team, and I knew it was a tough Rams team, and I lost in the semis. So sometimes you have to make tough decisions. I know that Terry's been great, but Terry's also not like Jamar Chase to me. He's a level down. That's not a knock. It's just not everybody's like in the top 4 or 5, which is Chase, Amon-Ra, Jefferson, where you just don't bench them. When you have an opportunity like this, where you do have a ton of depth, I think you just have to really be cautious about a really tough matchup like that. The Eagles have been great. I mean, since week 3, they've been awesome, but overall, they allow the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, 22.9. And last year, they allowed a lot. They have totally revamped that passing secondary.
I hear you on that one. I think I would still go with Terry McLaurin and the talent over there. I don't think I'd want to trust any of the other 3 receivers and their quarterback situations, their offensive struggles for some of them. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. My number 2 would be Juwan Jennings. Nick mentioned it at the start of the take. It looks like a tough matchup on paper. Over the last 3 weeks, the Miami Dolphins have allowed the 3rd most points to the wide receiver position. They have been
fewest or most?
Most. To the wide receiver position.
Okay.
So, they have been a little bit more on a lull, I would say. I know it's a snapshot of the season, but you'd rather see that if you're playing Jennings the last 3 weeks than you would if they were top 3. So I would roll out Jennings and I would roll out McLaurin. I think Allen is a very solid start too, but that was I believe Eberflus's last game when he played against the Lions, and the offense has just looked abysmal ever since.
All right, and then Jonathan also asked, how do you feel about Walker this week? Have to start him because my options are Walker, Charbonnet, Spears, and Abdullah. I would start Walker of all those talent, but I am very worried about Kenneth Walker. I have him starting at the moment. I kind of want to pull him for Patrick Taylor. Facing the Vikings, who allow 15.4 fantasy points to running backs a week. That is the 3rd fewest. Their defense has been great against running backs the entirety of the season. The Seahawks' awesome offensive line is they put on a show on Sunday Night Football. They showed you guys what Geno's been covering up the entirety of the season. And they're bad. The offensive line is really that bad. I think it's going to be tough to get the run game going against the Vikings. He doesn't get a ton of PPR workload. I think Walker is going to be a very tough guy for most fantasy managers to bench this week because of his production, because of the opportunity, and because of the fact that running back is such a thin position. But I think he's going to throw up a lot of stinkers and lose some people some fantasy football weeks. So
yeah, I think I'm no matter what taking whoever the Seattle running back is going to be of the three of them. I think he's the most guaranteed to get the workload. Obviously, if both are out there, it's going to be Walker. I'm fine with rolling out the Seattle back of the group.
From the Sean, would you start Michael Penix over Sam Darnold and Tua? Absolutely not. I would absolutely start Darnold against that Seahawks defense. They're that bad. I'm telling you guys, they're that bad. Darnold's your quarterback 8 on the season. I know he had a little bit of a stinker last week. Sorry, Nick, but his previous 4 games, he had over 19 fantasy points in all 4 of them. One of them was over 34. He's just been trustable. I mean, in terms of reliability, he only has 1 game under double digits. I think that was against the Jets week 5. I don't remember who they faced week 5. I'm sorry, 2 games under double digits against the Jets week 5, then week 10. I forget who he versus week 10. But I mean, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games out of 10 games out of 14 over 17 fantasy points. He's been reliable, and the offense has been great. The Seahawks secondary is bad. Like, everything about their defense is pretty much bad. So Jefferson should have a good day. Addison should have a good day. The only thing I see stopping Darnold is if for some reason Aaron Jones has like a hat trick and he doesn't throw any offensive touchdown passes. So I would love to start Darnold over both of them. Tua worries me a little bit against the 49ers defense that is still banged up, but they are still the 49ers, and I feel like Shanahan probably knows McDaniel in his system. So I think Darnold's your clear starter out of this bunch.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Okay. Next question from Joe. Start Tyrone Tracy going up against the Falcons, Kendrick Miller going up against the Packers, or Craig Reynolds going up against the Bears. I think I'm liking Tracy.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Tracy as well.
I wish I had like some ridiculous numbers to back up. The Bears allow the 4th most fantasy points to running backs, but I really just think it's going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs show. The Packers, I know, are middle of the pack. No pun intended, just kind of saying that. The Falcons are actually pretty tough against the run. They allow the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs. I still think the opportunity's there, though. I would go with Tyrone Tracy. I don't trust Craig Reynolds enough with the Jahmyr Gibbs show. I don't trust Kendrick Miller enough. I think the Packers defense looked really good on Sunday Night Football. Like, this is an opportunity for the Packers to just heat up as a football team. Spencer Rattler on Monday night, like, they're gonna eat him. They're gonna eat him for dinner. That's so.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, thank you for the questions. We'll keep answering them. If you're a new viewer, seeing some faces haven't seen before, welcome to the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We give you guys a live show every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time during the NFL season. That's available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We then give you guys 2 shows during the week that are pre-recorded on Tuesdays and Thursdays/Fridays. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. We'd appreciate that. Make sure to drop a like on this video. Hit the bell icon on YouTube so you get notifications when we go live. If you have any questions during the week, Twitter's PrimeTimeFFPod and Instagram is Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. And if you'd like to consume the show in an audio podcast form, maybe you have a 30-minute drive to work and don't want to watch the video, that's okay too. The audio is available on all audio streaming podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. From Colin, Giants are trash, though. I'm a Vikings fan, and I know Sammy can smash at any time for daily fantasy, but it's hard not to play Penix. I don't think you could play a rookie semifinal of your fantasy football playoffs. A rookie in his first start. I should say that as well. This isn't Bo Nix, who's a top 10 quarterback on the season. This is a rookie in his first start. I know he has a good offense around him, but Kirk Cousins has been a stat sheet stuffer his entire life, and he wasn't able to get the ball downfield with these guys. So I personally could not trust Michael Penix for my starting lineup unless I was in like an 18-person league or something along those lines.
Well, if it's DFS format and his price was already set on Monday and it's super low, then definitely you're going to play the quarterback that's worth whatever it is, 2,500 or less, whatever that number is.
Sure.
So the DFS format, absolutely not a problem if that's what the number was set at.
Sure.
But if it's a straight up 1v1, there's no way I'm playing him over Darnold or most of the other reliable quarterbacks
Sure.
yet.
Tracy, Pollard, Stevenson need to. Is this PPR, my friend? I'm assuming it is. So if it's PPR, it's Tyrone Tracy going up against the Falcons, Mr. Breakaway Speed, Tony Pollard going up against the Colts, and Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Bills. So I have Ramondre Stevenson on my all boom team. And I'll tell you guys, here's why. If you don't listen to our shows during the week, that's okay. On Fridays or Thursdays when we drop that show, we do an all boom, us all bust team. 7 players we each think are going to boom. 7 players we each think we're going to bust. So for Ramondre Stevenson facing the Bills, who allow the second most fantasy points to running backs, an average of 24.9 points per game. Stevenson's also had 69 plus rushing yards in 4 out of 5 games. So he's getting the volume and he's getting the opportunity. It is standard. We're looking for touchdowns. So I like Stevenson getting in the end zone, and I think I like Tony Pollard getting in the end zone this week as well. I know he got banged up last week, but he should be good to go today. Got into the end zone last week. I told you guys to trade for Tony Pollard weeks ago due to his playoff schedule. The Colts allow the 8th most fantasy points to running backs, an average of 21.9. I would go with Stevenson and Pollard. I think they're both getting in the end zone, and I think they both have the better matchup.
I agree with you. Also, to back Pollard, the last time that he went up against the Colts, since PPR doesn't matter for you, 93 rushing yards on 17 carries, a touchdown. Catches don't really matter for you, so won't go there. But yeah, there you go. I mean, that's a 15-point day, which is very solid for a running back in non-PPR.
And thank you for the love, guys. Love seeing the new faces in here. Thank you, guys. Subscribe to the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast on YouTube. From Deshaun, start 2 quarterbacks in a double super flex. Michael Penix, Geno Smith, Bryce Young, Aiden O'Connell, Mason Rudolph. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, boy. All right.
Like that.
Now Penix is in play. This is a question when Penix is in play to me. First off, AOC, I'm not starting AOC. Let's. I don't know how you feel about that, Nick, but he is my least favorite option here. Mason Rudolph might be my second least favorite option. Man. I feel like Geno's your best start here, but he's banged up and going against a really tough defense, but he is a stat sheet stuffer, so I think I want to get Geno in here for sure. And then what do the Cardinals do against quarterbacks? The Cardinals are really tough against quarterbacks. Look, they allow the 7th fewest fantasy points. I think I kind of want to go Michael Penix and Geno here.
I would go. The first one I would lock in is actually Bryce Young. I feel like he's looked the best of the group.
He looked bad last week against a tough defense.
Yeah. I think I'd still roll out Bryce. I'm looking at the schedule and over-unders trying to figure out a second one, honestly, because that is rough sledding over there. Part of me actually likes the AOC play against the Jags. I am worried that the Jags are not good against anything, but they're really bad against running backs, so that's a little bit of a concern of mine for AOC, but I guess I would roll out Geno and Bryce Young. I don't mind you rolling out Penix in place of either of the two.
All right. We do have a couple questions in the queue, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll actually see where your question is. Please just hang around with us. We'll keep answering your questions. Just hang tight. McCory Jackson, Darnell Mooney, and Jalen McMillan in the flex. Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry on the bench. Would you change anything? Madison is available on waivers. I know I've been kind of anti-Falcon on the show so far, but I wouldn't change anything. I do like Mooney more than Douglas and Hunter Henry.
Yeah, I like McMillan the most. I don't mind you getting Madison in there for dropping Douglas and getting Madison in the starting lineup. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Scott Green, a quarterback question, full PPR, Anthony Richardson or Aaron Rodgers. Why don't you talk about this one, Nick? You got the Jet hat on.
I do have the Jet hat on, and Aaron Rodgers is on fire the last 2 weeks, averaging over 300 passing yards a game. He's been on fire for the last few games, actually. I got to scroll back in my notes a little bit because I had this my takeaway from last week.
Talk about the enigma, Aaron Rodgers.
The enigma, Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers right now is the QB 12 on the year, which is shocking to many. 11th most yards, 8th most touchdowns. He had 30 points this past week, 290 yards in the air, 45 yards on the ground. Last 7 games, he has 13 touchdowns, 1 interception, 237 yards per game. He is trending in the right direction. And I think the one thing I would take away from the entire season based off what we've seen is the Achilles injury is a lot harder to recover from than a lot of people think. Kirk Cousins looks like he still has not recovered. And Aaron Rodgers looks like he's starting to be on the up and up after the rough start of the season for sure. But there we go. I would go with Rodgers as well. I also like the Rams having to go from West Coast, East Coast. I love that taking advantage of defenses in that spot. It's very tough to adjust to the time when you go that way.
I also like the fact that I think the Rams will score a lot of points, so the Jets will score a lot of points. Rodgers is going to help try to get his guys his incentives. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson still both have bonuses, I believe, that they need to hit. So I think we'll try to get those. Anthony Richardson just doesn't throw the ball enough. It's a really tough matchup against Tennessee, so I'd go with Rodgers.
Yep.
For Manny T, in a 12 PPR, pick 2, Jalen McMillan. I can't remember Strange's first name, but I'm not going to start Brenton Strange. Romeo Doubs and Alexander Madison. So I think me and Nick have been all over McMillan. I would start McMillan, double-digit fantasy points in each of his last 2 games. Cowboys allowed 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And Baker throws a lot. So I like McMillan. No Trayvon Diggs, yeah. And then if I had to pick a second one, I think I'd pick Dobbs for the fact that the Saints are really bad. I think this is just going to be a Packers just like onslaught. The Saints, for reference, allow these 6th most fantasy points to receivers. With the Packers offense, you're spinning the wheel of mystery because you don't know who's going to get the ball that week. So I would play the upside of Romeo Doubs.
I would play the floor of Madison over Romeo Doubs, unless if you really, really need that upside.
But who do you think is starting for the Raiders this week?
Madison.
Over Abdullah? I think Abdullah might start.
No, Madison's got the RB1 reps when the 2 of them have been out there.
All right. Okay, so you have Jalen McMillan or DK Metcalf. This is standard again. Oh God, DK's been so bad. The Vikings technically have a great matchup here. They allowed the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers at 33.4. McMillan going up against the Cowboys, who allowed the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers at 28.6. DK's been so bad. This is really tough because DK actually does have a good matchup, but he keeps getting double teamed and JSN keeps getting the ball because DK's double teamed.
Well, last 5 games, the Vikings are allowing 38 points per game to wide receivers. Last 5, the Cowboys are only 35.1. So they're very, very close between the 2 of them. It is a much closer, easy defensive matchup for wide receivers. So,
I want to see when the last time DK actually scored a touchdown was. DK has not scored a touchdown since week 7. He's kind of due. That means. I'll play DK. I think
he's been due for 4 weeks. I have him on my bench. I would go with McMillan. It's a risk, but you got to risk it to win in fantasy football.
From Garrett, 1 quarterback PPR. I'm so torn between Drake May going up against the Bills and Cooper Rush. I'll help you out. You have CD starting too? Oh, boy, I can help you out because Cooper Rush is on the all-boom team this week. Cooper Rush. The Bucs allow the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, an average of 21.2. They've allowed the most for a majority of the season. The Bucs are bad against quarterbacks. As for Cooper Rush, he's actually been really good. He might be better than Dak Prescott, who's a fraud. 5 consecutive weeks for Cooper Rush with double-digit fantasy points. 3 of those games over 15. Drake May is a tough matchup against the Bills in the snow. Let's go with Cooper Rush. I think Cooper Rush is going to have a big game on Sunday Night Football. I am not excited for the Sunday Night Football game because the Cowboys kind of stink and they're out of it, and I really don't understand why is it the Sunday night game besides the fact that Jerry Jones probably told the NFL there's no way you're pulling my Sunday night game. But play Cooper Rush. That is my Cooper. And you have the stack with CeeDee Lamb. That's going to be a lot of fun for you to watch them gobbling up points on Sunday Night Football as your opponent sits there biting his nails in fear.
All right. I'll back Nick on that one. Let's go for it. Let's go with Cooper Rush.
From Chris, would you go Drew Lock, the horse cock, we love him, or Mac Jones, the 2nd quarterback, and also would you go Jalen Coker or Tajay Spears? Let's do the quarterback question first. Drew Lock going up against the Falcons, Mac Jones going up against the Raiders. I think I want to play the matchup here, Nick. The Raiders are bad.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
Mac Jones still has Brian Thomas Jr., still has a couple other pieces around there. Go with Mac Jones. Then Jalen Coker, who's been pretty productive over the past 2 weeks, or Tajay Spears, who did have a good game last week. I think I like the upside of Coker. I think I like the fact that he maybe sort of kind of is the wide receiver 1-ish over there. And we know that Spears is the backup with Tony Pollard. And Pollard's played well this season, and they paid him. So I do want to note that stuff.
Yeah, I had Coker earlier in the year on a deep pickup list. So
Cardinals are kind of tough against receivers. They allow the 8th fewest fantasy points to receivers. And the Colts are bad against running backs. But again, Pollard was really good against the Colts last time, and Pollard kind of seems like their guy.
I think I'd go with Coker as well. I think I'm a little too concerned that it might just be the full Tony Pollard show over there. I think it's more likely that Tajay Spears is a bust than Jalen Coker with both of their snap shares.
For you new viewers or viewers that haven't heard my speeches yet, this is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We give you a live show every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time during the fantasy football season. That show's available on YouTube. A lot of you guys are watching on YouTube right now. Thanks for that. YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you're watching this video and enjoy our content, hopefully you do, please drop a like on this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit that bell icon. We give you guys 2 shows during the week that are pre-recorded on Tuesdays and then Thursdays/Fridays. Those pre-recorded shows are on an audio video format on our YouTube, but if you'd rather listen in an audio podcast form, it's available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Please subscribe to that as well. If you have any other questions, Twitter, PrimeTimeFFPod, Instagram, Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. We make it as easy as possible to support us. So if you enjoy our content, please support us. We appreciate you guys for rocking with us every week during the season. We've done over 60 live shows over the past 4 years, and we have a lot of fun with these shows. From the Sean, half PPR start at tight end. Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, or Strange. Ertz is kind of a revenge game, but not a revenge game. He has a little bit of an injury, but he should be good to go. Eagles are good literally against everything at tight ends. They allow the 5th fewest points. Pitts has been really bad. What do we think?
I would go with Strange. I liked last week, 12 targets for the tight end position, 11 catches on it. Mac Jones has always liked the tight end position. You saw it from Hunter Henry the last few years, where every single year it felt like he was a top waiver wire candidate when we never considered him to be it. I think Strange has the most upside. He also steps into a role as the slot guy over there with Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside. I think it makes a lot of sense for Strange to have a very solid week with a very safe floor. I don't think I could say the same for the other two.
I'll back you on that. The Raiders will have the 5th most fantasy points, 2 tight ends, an average of 12.5, and the Raiders really need to lose this game. This is the Raiders' season on the line, by the way. All right, from Alenda, DJ Moore or Rico Dowdle. I'm assuming this is did write full PPR, so I'm assuming it's PPR for all these. DJ Moore going up against the Lions or Rico Dowdle going up against the Bucs on Sunday Night Football. Full PPR. Let's start with that question before the running back question.
Hang tight. I wanted to pull a stat for
Which one are you looking up? Because I'm pulling up the other one. Which one are you going for?
I'm looking for DJ Moore, Rico Dowdle.
No, I'm saying which player.
I'm looking up Dowdle at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to get
Dowdle has been on a bit of a hot streak.
Yes, I know that. I know that for sure.
Hang tight, guys.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, but we're trying to give you guys some accurate information because this is a good question, and I think they both have good matchups here, and I want to be accurate about it.
So Rico Dowdle over the last 3 weeks is a top 10 running back. He has 22, 15, 14.9. It has been very, very consistent and very safe for Rico Dowdle. He has been the clear RB1 over there. We always said whoever gets that job is going to be a fine play, a better play. And it took long enough into the season, but Dowdle has now been very safe and reliable. I do not trust DJ Moore after him saying he's thinking about Cabo already, this guy over here. Did you see that interview, Nick?
I didn't. That's a little worrisome. I'm about to tell you to play DJ Moore, and here's why. Since week 9, his lowest target total is 6. Every other week, he's had 7+ targets. Last time against the Lions, week 13, he had 8 receptions on 16 targets for 97 yards and a touchdown, 23.7 fantasy points. Since then, he's had 8+ targets in each of his last 2 games, so he is getting the target share. And the Lions defense has been bad against wide receivers. They are still pretty banged up. They allow the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Their defense is still banged up. I would go with DJ Moore. I think but these are really good matchups here. And these are different. I'm assuming these are different leagues. So if these are the same league, let us know, because I kind of want to get both DJ Moore and Rico Dowdle in there. So let us know if this is the same question for the same league. I don't think it is based off your second question a little bit down in the queue.
I will actually give you another stat for DJ Moore over here. Earlier this season when they faced, he had 8 catches on for 97 yards and a touchdown on 16 targets.
Yes.
So I will definitely give you the credit on that one. For that.
They both have good matchups. They both have good matchups. I just feel like DJ Moore is Caleb's favorite target, and it's a good matchup. So I would love to get both these guys in your lineups if you can, but let us know who else is in your lineup. Based on your second question further down on the queue, I think these are different leagues, but if these are the same league, let us know. Kenneth Walker or Rachaad White. Kenneth Walker is the running back one for the Seahawks, but facing the Vikings, who are allowed the third fewest fantasy points to running backs. That is a tough matchup. Then we have Rachaad White going up against the Cowboys, who allow the sixth most fantasy points to running backs at 22.1. I think I'd rather play Rachaad White. I think he has a good PPR opportunity to catch the ball a ton. I think he has red zone opportunity. I'm really negative about my Seahawks today, so I would bench Kenneth Walker for a guy like Rachaad White.
Yeah, I agree. I am a little concerned because Charbonnet has looked so good. So if both of them are healthy, I do wonder if he sneaks in there and takes some touches. I don't know if he will, but it's a little bit more of a concern of mine where Bucky Irving's gone down with injury 2 of the last 4 weeks. And Rachaad White has gotten an uptick in his workload. It is the highest over-under of the week. We love running backs in those high over-under games. So for me, I think Rachaad White is the safer play, and I do think he offers more upside.
All right. We appreciate you as well. We appreciate everybody. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Thank you for asking your questions. We love these shows. All right, tough call. One wide receiver, one flex. Tony Pollard, reliable. He is reliable. We do like Mr. Breakaway Speed. Tajay Spears, Jameson Williams, or Addison with weather. What is the Seattle weather?
I don't know.
I think the game is in Seattle.
Yeah, I don't want to bench Jordan Addison. I don't care about the weather. The last 4 weeks, he is the wide receiver 3 over the course of not the year, but of all wide receivers, he's the wide receiver 3 over the last 4 weeks. He's been on fire. Him and Darnold have been connecting a lot.
I'm sure you could guess what the weather is in Seattle.
Probably raining, as it always does. Are you getting any snow or no? Nick?
Yeah, you hear me? I think we have a little connection.
Yep. Are you getting any snow up there or no?
Am I getting snow? I have no snow at the moment.
No, in Seattle. In Seattle.
It looks like rain.
Okay, just rain. Okay.
Looks like
that's
rain.
Fine. And then I don't mind you making the pick between Jameson Williams or Tony Pollard. I think Pollard, like you mentioned, is going to be more reliable and safer floor. I think Jamo has offered the highest upside from anyone of this group.
Okay, it's calling for a gusty rain with a chance of precipitation of 100%. Stuck in my throat right there. Winds are expected to pick up throughout the day. I think I'd still play Addison. I think I'm right there with Nick. I would play Addison and Tony Pollard. I wouldn't mind getting Jamo in there, but the Bears defense is kind of tough against receivers. Do want to know that? Okay. Good call by Joe here. The Cowboys playing on Sunday night means that they don't deal with the stadium glare.
Very
we
true.
appreciate you as well, Garrett. All right, from Melinda again, quarterback question. First league is Jaden Daniels or Jordan Love. Here we go. I have Jaden Daniels on the all-bust team, and I think he could lose you your fantasy year. I think he absolutely can. Eagles allow the third fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, an average of 14.7. One of Daniels' lowest games of the season, he scored 14.4 against the Eagles, his 4th fewest this season. I know that doesn't sound bad, but in terms of a guy who's been very, very reliable, the Eagles' defense seems to be a little bit of a kryptonite so far. I think I played Jordan Love, who's been very, very good. I know that when Jacobs is on, it's kind of tough for Love to get going. But I think it's a really positive matchup against the Saints. The Saints allow the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They also allow, I'm trying to see where they are with quarterbacks. They're like middle of the pack of quarterbacks. So I would go with Love in this first one.
I don't mind it. I have Jaden Daniels in one of my playoff leagues. I'm hoping he doesn't lose it for me. This might be biased take because of it, but I do think that Washington is due for a big win. I think the Eagles are due for a loss. They had a very good week last week going up against the Steelers in a they absolutely dominated them, but we did not expect them to look as good in the passing game as they did. I think Jaden Daniels is gonna fight, and I think he's gonna make his offensive rookie of the year case. And I think the Eagles you might see a little bit more struggle from than you have seen throughout the entire course of the year. Jalen Hurts has not looked good against Dan Quinn throughout his career when he was the DC over in Dallas. So I am a little bit concerned that Hurts has a couple turnovers, gives Jaden Daniels the ball a little bit more in this game. It does look, I think he tries to make that offensive rookie of the year case. So I think Daniels is going to offer a safer floor than a lot of people think because I think he's going to run the ball a ton. But I agree. It's hard to not take Jordan Love in that matchup on Monday Night Football. It checks a lot of the boxes you want for fantasy.
Second question here. We have Joe Burrow, who's your quarterback 4 in the season, Jared Goff, who's on fire, and Baker Mayfield, who's another top 5 quarterback on the season. Burrow is historically bad against Cleveland. Last time he faced them was week 7, 14.9 fantasy points. But since then, he's had 6 games over 18. 3 of them are over 29. Burrow's had some really good games here. I think this might be a situation where it might be too tough to bench Burrow. In my dynasty league, I have Burrow and Baker. I think it might be too tough to bench Burrow here. I know it's a tough matchup against it's really not a tough match, but it's a tough divisional matchup that he struggled against. But I think the offense is just too good to bench here.
I think that's fair. I do want to go Baker of the 3 of them, but Burrow is definitely been one of the best plays at quarterback, definitely from a pocket guy all year, so I don't mind it. I do worry about the division matchups. He's not looked great in them this year. He very much took advantage of Baltimore, but Pittsburgh he hasn't looked good against. He never really looks good against the Browns, like Nick mentioned. Baker, I do have him on the all boom team, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a rub from that. Currently the QB5 in the year, averaging 22 points per game against teams that allow top 10 points per game to the quarterback position. That is where the Dallas Cowboys fall in. Now you get no Trayvon Diggs. I believe they're going to force feed Mike Evans in this game, and I think Jalen McMillan is as a very positive matchup as well. So for me, I really think that Baker has the highest upside in the highest over under of the week.
All right. Next question from Big Breakfast. Christian Watson going up against the Saints, or Amari Cooper in my last flex. Cooper going up against the Patriots. I think I would like to run the roulette board of Christian Watson against the Saints, not knowing which receiver on the Packers offense will explode, but positive matchup against the Saints.
I agree. Amari Cooper is the ultimate pro. He had a very great quote this week. I don't know if you saw it, where he had 0 targets last week, and he was asked about it. As you know, most diva receivers would lose their mind. And he said, I don't care. I'm about winning. He said, I've been in this league 10 years, which was crazy to me to think he's been in the league 10 years at this point. Knew he was older, but I didn't realize 10. And he said, it's all about winning at this point in my career. And he said, I could get 100 targets or 0. Like, doesn't fucking matter. I just want to be a part of a winning team. So ultimate consummate pro, does not need the target share. Christian Watson, a little bit more on that diva side, and gonna try and get some big touchdowns in a very positive matchup.
All right, from the Sean, Michael Penix or Mac Jones. I like Mac Jones against the Raiders. I think he's just going to feed his receivers. He'll feed the tight end. He might have a pick in there, but I would rather play Mac Jones from what I've seen compared to what I haven't seen from Penix.
I think that's totally fine. I will say this. I do not know if I think Mac Jones is going to get a little bit more of a rub or a bump because last week he looked good against the Jets, a team he played in the division against for multiple years, a team that had multiple cornerbacks out, multiple linebackers out. Granted, the Raiders defense is not good, but that defensive line is very nasty. I am concerned about that, so I do not mind you shooting your shot on Penix in a much better offense, but I do think that Mac Jones does offer you a safer floor. I do not want the unknown of Penix to ruin your fantasy football season.
And then Deshaun asked, Kenneth Walker or Brian Robinson? Both really tough matchups. So Brian Robinson going up against the Eagles, he'll have the second fewest fantasy points at 15.2 per game. Kenneth Walker against the Vikings, he'll have the third fewest fantasy points to running backs at 15.4 per game. Brian Robinson against Philly last time had 14.2 points. That's with a touchdown. Without the touchdown, he had, well, I can't say without touchdown, but he had 63 rushing yards. So he had a decent-ish game, but only one target. What do you think here, Nick? I think I would lean Kenneth Walker, but this is a tough one. They're both really tough matchups.
I would too. And Nick, I got to give you a little bit of credit here because I think that Nick is a phenomenal host for being able to see that was B-Rob, because I would have definitely said Goat James if I didn't scroll down and see B-Rob further down. So I definitely would have been more confused.
Goat James suiting up for his Cowboys tonight.
Oh, yeah. Gotta hope so. You'd probably be elite tight end. Number one tight end in high school in the country.
He could play tight end. Yeah, he could play tight end.
He could definitely rock tight end. And Jerry would give him that contract, let's be honest.
So who are you rocking with in this one?
I agree with you. I'd roll out Kenneth Walker. That is where I do not want the Eagles defense.
A4, sit one, Kenneth Walker, Brees Hall, Kendra Miller, Patrick Taylor. I'm assuming this is PPR. Who are you sitting, Nick? We just spoke about the negatives of Kenneth Walker, but I mean, Brees is locked in. Let's start with that. I mean, you're starting Brees, and there's two others here you're playing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think I would bench. I would want Patrick Taylor. I'd want a 49ers running back. Dolphins not very good against the running back position, so I do like that matchup there. So the question for me is Kenneth Walker or Kendra. I think I'd rather roll out Kenneth Walker, knowing the talent, versus
I think
Kendra
so too.
But I don't mind you also saying I want a piece of Monday Night Football. I don't, but I don't mind it.
Rico Dowdle or T. Higgins, half PPR. This is another interesting one because T. Higgins, he did that stinker that may have cost you to not make the playoffs. But if you did make the playoffs, T. Higgins has probably been a big piece of your team. I mean, T's last, let's see.
I am all boom team, so I'll give you some stats.
Oh, there you go. Yep, let's do it.
T. Higgins had one bad game just 2 weeks ago. It was the lull Nick talked about. But he's been fantastic otherwise. He's averaging 17 points per game. He's top 10 in points per game at the wide receiver position over the course of the year. He got hurt against the Browns in week 7, still scored 18 in that matchup, the same exact matchup. So we do like that from him. I think he's going to get a big game. You also, I said it in the show, I really wish that we were getting Jameis Winston, and I wish we were getting a shootout. But I do not trust DTR to move the ball, so I do think Burrow gets his hand on the bunch. I do think T is going to have to score more in the first half of the game. I worry about Dallas getting routed by the Bucs tonight. They definitely get a little bit of a bump because they have looked better, Dallas, the last few weeks, and Rico is averaging about 17 points per game over his last 3. To save floor, I actually want to get both in my lineup, but if I have to make that decision in fantasy playoffs, I'm usually going to go upside, and to me, the upside is Higgins.
All right. So here we go. This is the Rico Dowdle and DJ Moore question. The lineup is Daniels or Love. Then we St. Brown's locked in, Sutton, Jacobs. I'm assuming it's Derrick Henry, McBride, and flexing Bowers. So Rico or DJ Moore would be the flex play. I really wish I knew this question like before Thursday Night Football. Would have told you to not play Sutton. I know it's easy.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I know it's easy to say after the fact, but that was a tough game for both sides of the ball in terms of receivers. But I like the lineup. I mean, Amon-Ra, Jacobs, Derrick Henry, who had like 170 yards last night, McBride, and flexing Bowers. I mean, let me just check one thing here. I'm gonna see.
Is it a one running back league? It looks like it's a. Oh no, it's 2 running back.
I'm gonna see if we could get the tight end. Is it even worth benching McBride? No, because the Panthers allow a lot of points to tight end, so I don't even want to bench McBride, and you can't really bench Bowers. Yeah, I think I would roll out DJ Moore. I would roll out DJ Moore, I think, and I would keep the lineup as is.
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's totally fair.
All right. Corey says, thank you guys so much for a winning season. We prevailed. I finished first in the regular season. That's wonderful. Hopefully we can help you finish with your championship. But I'm glad that we could, help you out, and not all our advice has helped or hurt you. So.
Hey, listen, I said it last week on the show. Professional sports gamblers hit at a 57 to 61% clip. Anything higher than that is incredible. Nick and I's job is to get you to that 60%. 60% means 2 of our 5 takes are wrong. So it happens, but our goal is to be.
I like to think we've had more right takes than wrong on these live shows. Me
too, but I'm sure if we ran it all back, it's probably closer to 65 to 70%, which is still a great clip, but it's not. It's not. It will never be perfect.
All right, PPR from Deshaun, Stevenson, Tyrone Tracy, and Tajay Spears. I'm so glad I benched Pacheco. I'm glad you benched him too, because Pacheco was on my all-bust team. Shout out to me for that one. I also busted Joe Mixon, so the all-bust team already. I also did a McConkey, so might have been wrong about that one. But anyway, Stevenson's on my all-boom team this week. The Bills allow the second most fantasy points, 2 running backs, an average of 24.9, 69 plus rushing yards, and 4 out of 5. It's a clear answer for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm straight in line with that.
Says he agree. My other running backs are James Cook and Jonathan Taylor, so I'm leaning Higgins over Dowdle. Yep. Taylor is a tough game today. I think Taylor's gonna have a terrible game. I have Taylor in my league, and I'm very, very concerned about him. Titans are kind of tough. I'm a little worried I'm a lot worried. It's a league that I need to win in, obviously, and I'm very worried about Taylor. But you can't bench him. I mean,
over the last 5 games, the Titans allowed the 12th most points per game to the running back position. So they're not one of the easier matchups. But
all right,
again,
that makes me a little bit happy.
It's very hard to see the snapshot because if you look at it over the course of the year, it's either if you're on sleeper, it's a big green or a big red button in your name. Like it's definitely intimidating, but highly recommend the Fantasy Footballers website. Another great podcast for football. On their website, they have team stats where you can filter by week. It's what I look through sometimes when I'm looking at my second monitor over here, and you could pull up some of the last 3 games, how teams are looking and see the trends. Cause it's usually better to go off the last 5 weeks than the last 15, because there's really going to be some outliers at the start of the year.
All right. We don't have any more questions at the moment. So we could begin to kind of wrap up. If you guys have any other questions, you could drop them in the chat. Hopefully we'll have to answer all the questions that you needed for your week 16 second round matchups. And hopefully we help you guys prevail next week. So if you enjoyed the show and you're watching live, make sure to drop a like. I would not go Dowdle over Jonathan Taylor. I'd keep Jonathan Taylor locked in there. It's tough, but
I would actually go Dowdle over JT just because he's been more consistent the last few weeks, but JT is definitely higher upside.
Okay. From Corey, should I hold on to Trey Benson at this point or get Alexander Madison from waivers? Go get Madison. Connor's awesome, and he's going to have a great game today. Connor's going to be a top 5 back today. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
The only way is if it's Dynasty or if it's keeper format, but they did just extend Connor, so I don't think Benson's going to get that job.
From Nikki, Rico Dowdle or Devontae Adams rest of season? Devontae's been on fire. I'd rather have Adams.
He's the wide receiver 1 over the last 3 weeks. He has been a dominant player so far, recently at least.
But I mean, you only have 2 weeks left. But I mean, I think I'd play Adams over each of these 2 weeks.
Oh, 100%. I don't even have a question about that one.
Stanley, we can help you with your championship week questions next week if you make your championship. It just depends on who your other option is. I can't tell you to play him with. Or
it might be championship week if you're in a 14 player format. It is championship week.
Oh, is it?
It is for some people. Also, real quick in the chat, just let us know. Anybody have a playoff game in week 18? I want that is probably going to factor into if Nick and I are alive 2 weeks from now or not. But
yeah, we're gonna wrap. He's in the championship. Okay. I mean, if your championship today, Madison has a good matchup, but I don't know who you're starting him over. So I need a player to base that question off of. Can't just blanketly tell you to start a guy.
Yeah, I like the Madison matchup, but got to know the other running back.
But yes, let us know today if you have a week 18. So we at least have 1 week 18. All right. Then we'll probably do a very short week 18 show. So if you guys do have week 18 matchups, we'll probably do a very short show. So jump on, get those questions in, and we'll get out of there because week 18 does not produce a lot of leagues. I don't know anybody that plays a week 18 personally, and I know a lot of people that play.
I'm definitely with you. I do not want to. I hate that format just because. Like, think about it like this. The Kansas City Chiefs do not need to play 3 of their stars. If you were trusting Kelsey or Mahomes, or even if Pacheco was playing well, like, there's a very good shot none of the 3 of them play that week. Like, it's going to happen for some players that are maybe if the Eagles are locked into the 2 seed, like, they're not going to be playing anybody. If the Lions get locked to the 2 seed, they're not going to be playing anybody. Like, it's a horrible format, in my opinion.
Stanley says Kendre Miller or Madison. I think they'll go Kendre Miller.
I agree.
All right, guys. So we're going to wrap up our week 16 live show as I'm doing the plugs. Drop any other questions and we'll answer them before we get out of here. So this is the Primetime Fantasy Football Podcast. If you enjoyed this show, thank you. Drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time we go live or drop a new video. We drop 2 videos during the week. Tuesday's a waiver wire show. Thursday/Friday is our all boom and all bust team. So you can check those out on our YouTube. They're also available on all audio streaming podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you have an iPhone like this guy, go to your Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and a review and subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that. If you have any other questions, Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod, usually pretty active on that. And Instagram is PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you guys for the support today and the entirety of this season. Best of luck in your week 2, or not week 2, playoff second round matchups. Hope to see you guys next week. Hopefully you make your championships. Best of luck today. Talk to you soon.